It is really my sincere pleasure to introduce Carlos Rodriguez Pastor, who is joining us from Peru. I could say many things about Carlos, about what he has contributed to his country, about the global leadership he has shown, about how inspiring he is as an individual. But I will let you discover all of that for yourselves by inviting him to come up and speak with us.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark, for the introduction, and thank you for the Shared Value Leadership team for inviting me to speak with you today. I feel at home because there's about 12 or 14 Peruvians. Where are they? Raise your hands. They're all over. Okay, good. All right. Almost 20 years ago, I read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. In the book, Frankl, a Viennese psychiatrist who has survived the Holocaust, makes the case that people are driven by an intrinsic search for meaning. This meaning can come in a number of forms, but it's a deep pursuit. It's deeper than the pursuit of pleasure, success, or power. This meaning is the unique individual person in each person's life. That's not working. That's why they took the clicker. Oops. This meeting in each person's life's most important objective. Now, what if there's a way to apply this concept to business? What if business aimed for something more? Something higher than just profit or doing a little good here and there? What if business, like humans, could ascribe to meaning? 25 years ago, I founded Intercorp. And since that time, I've overseen a collection of Peruvian-based businesses under its umbrella, including Interbank. Currently, Intercorp has $8 billion of revenues, employs 80,000 people, and makes up roughly 4% of Peru's GDP. But all of that success isn't enough. I want us to accomplish more, something deeper and bigger. I want Intercorp to have meaning. I don't want us to settle for doing well as a business, or just giving money away to various causes, or just making our company's world a better place through inclusion, a good work environment, and fair pay. These are all good things, but what if we could accomplish more? I believe that's a concept behind shared value. Shared value says, yes, be successful as a business, but also do good for society. No more settling for just profit, or just giving money away, or just making the company's world better. Instead, we can do well and address some of society's biggest challenges. We can make our world a better place and make the world a better place. For Intercorp, our deep meaning is found in how we're changing Peru. I'm Peruvian. My family's Peruvian. Our company is based in Peru. I have a deep passion for Peru and a deep drive to help Peru. Our long-term purpose is to push Peru and help it become a developed country, no longer an underdeveloped country. Our shorter-term goal is to help Peru become the best place to raise a family in Latin America. Don't believe me? It's right there on the front splash of our website. We believe the best way to accomplish these goals is by building Peru's emerging middle class and help our economy move from an informal, manual labor, and resource-based economy into a formal, ideas, and a knowledge-based economy. To achieve this objective, we need to directly address whatever is standing in the way of that goal. And in Peru, the three biggest impediments to expanding and supporting the emerging middle class are education, healthcare, and infrastructure. So to live out our meaning, we have banked on the shared value ideal and have worked to build businesses that don't just succeed, but succeed and have measurable impact on these key societal problems, counting on one to feed the other. Let me start with education. If the people of a country aren't trained properly, the nation can't have a future, especially as it develops from a manual economy to an idea economy. If the children of a country are taught well and given an inspiring education system within which they can flourish, then the country might possibly change and mature. Peru's education system has been appalling for most of its history. As recently as 2000, out of 41 nations measured, Peru ranked dead last in the PISA education rankings. In 2012, 12 years later, we are still last, this time out of 65 countries measured. In 2015, Peruvian public schools had a pass rate for mathematics of 28% and 45% for language arts. Our government was doing a terrible job educating the next generation. Private schools didn't fare any better. They had a 25% pass rate for mathematics and 61% for language arts. So in 2011, we started to think about how we could create a new education system that could help Peru take its next giant leap toward becoming a developed nation. We partnered with IDEO, the renowned global design company, and other powerful organizations like Khan Academy, Harvard University, and UC Berkeley to create and develop a new kind of school. The school system would need to be built on 4 characteristics. It would have to be affordable, academically excellent, scalable, and profitable. Affordable. With a $130 per month tuition, it would be within the reach of most Peruvian middle-class families. Academically excellent. It had to challenge students to think in new and creative ways in a blended learning environment that leverages both teacher strengths and outside expertise. Scalable. Not just 1 or 2 schools. Our aspiration is to build hundreds of schools. And profitable, they each had to make money. Otherwise, we would run out of funds to build more schools. We started with a single school, but since 2011, the network of Innova Schools has grown and grown and grown. There are now 54 Innova Schools in Peru and 1 in Mexico, with a total of 43,000 students. And in 5 years, we expect to have 100,000 students in our schools. Innova Schools is overturning the standard of education in Peru. Our mathematics pass rates are currently 61%, and language arts pass rates are 88%. Innova Schools now rank in the top 25% of 28,000 schools across the world. 90% of Innova graduates go on to higher education. These are real schools having a real effect on Peru and impacting the lives of real students. Seven years ago, Leslie Espinosa was 11 years old. She was living in the outskirts of Lima and going to a public school. Her parents helped her apply for Peru Champs, which is the Innova Schools scholarship program that helps cover about 75% of the tuition. Over the 7 years Leslie has gone to Innova, she proved to be such a hardworking, bright, focused student that she graduated with honors last year. And not only that, she's going to college. And not only that, she's going to college somewhere beyond Peru. Here's a short video of Leslie logging onto a computer to find out if she got into Dartmouth.
¿Cómo sabían que entré? De verdad. Mira ese árbol.
Not only did Leslie get into Dartmouth, but she also got into Duke, Georgetown, Swarthmore, Emory, and Oxford. She recently decided, after their $80,000 scholarship offer, to attend Stanford University this fall and study neuroscience. I could not be more proud for Leslie and her family, and for the many more students that will be coming out of Innova with opportunities their parents never had. And I couldn't be more excited for how students like Leslie are going to help change the trajectory of Peru. Now, Innova Schools isn't some charity organization. When we started investigating what was going wrong with the Peru education system, we researched the public and the private schools available to families. This is what a typical public school looks like for many of the emerging middle-class neighborhoods. You know, take a closer look. It's got fences, it's got a steel door, dark windows, don't look in, don't look out. If I didn't tell you what it was, you'd think it was a prison. As a result of this poor quality of public schools, many private schools have also emerged over the years. Today in Lima, almost 50% of all children go to private schools. And to fool parents, some of these private schools that are only driven by profit came up with really interesting names. We have Princeton, we have Harvard, we have Stanford, we have the Bill Gates School, and even the new Innova School that's not ours. So we went undercover to one and asked the woman who ran it why she started the school. And she literally said to me, because it's more profitable than a Chinese food restaurant. That's the level of commitment some of these schools have. Now, if we were just focused on profit, we could have also provided a cheap education like them. And we weren't just focused on making affordable schools with a better level of education. If we were, we could have done that really well for about 2 or 3 years before the money ran out. No, for us, Innova had to do both, be profitable and provide measurable societal good. The more profitable the schools are, the more schools we can open and the more societal change we can effect. Through our work at Innova, we've learned when you focus on both profit and good, you get more of both. Next, healthcare. The health of a country's population greatly impacts its ability to have a thriving economy. If its people are sick, they can't show up for work, motivation decreases, and overall quality of life plummets. In Lima, access to quality pharmacy and healthcare isn't a big problem. But in the rural areas, it's been a big problem for a long time. To address this issue, we purchased Inca Pharma in 2011. Inca Pharma is our chain of pharmacies designed to provide medicine and healthcare supplies at the lowest prices of any other provider. We are the Walmart of healthcare in Peru, providing everyday low prices. We bring medicine to places along remote reaches of the Amazon, places where medicine could only reach after weeks of travel. We make it immediately available. We've grown Inca Pharma so that now there are 2,000 Inca Pharma and Mi Pharma pharmacies throughout Peru. And this month, we're going to be opening up our first Aviva healthcare clinic. With Aviva, we'll be providing quality, low-cost healthcare in a space that's otherwise unreliable or overpriced. Just like when we set out to help change education in Peru, before we purchased Inca Pharma, we assessed the marketplace to find out what was really going on. And again, we went undercover. Time and time again, we learned that many pharmacies were selling placebos and expired rather than effective medicine. And many lab testing sites weren't actually running tests. They were pocketing the money and just making up results, including disease diagnosis and pregnancy tests. When it came to putting these con artists out of business and give Peruvians the health care they needed, our work was cut out for us. What we've created has had a powerful impact on our customers, giving them what they need at the right price. But it's also been profitable. Just like with Innova, this means we can build more and more Inca Pharma pharmacies and Aviva clinics, thus helping more and more Peruvians. When Peruvians are well, they can continue to contribute to the economy. In the past, if they were sick and needed to visit a doctor, it could take all day to wait to be seen by a healthcare professional. And if it took all day, they'd lose their jobs. With Inca Pharma, they're seen and cared for quickly and inexpensively. More than anything, this healthcare revolution we're attempting to lead is serving as a lever to help raise our population, keep them healthy, thriving, and working, so our nation can continue its movement in the right direction. Again, if we just focused on profit, we might have provided cut-rate care like those who previously dominated the marketplace. Or we probably would have stayed close to Lima, where the wealthier citizens are. We could have made a lot of money that way, but we wouldn't have been helping anyone. On the other hand, if we just focused on doing good, we might have given money to those living in rural, outlying areas. But that wouldn't have provided the jobs for the area or sparked the economy. Because Inca Pharma is profitable and does good, we believe we can have a longer lasting impact on Peru. From our experience with Inca Pharma, we've learned how important it is to focus on a need, then meet that need in a sustainable way. Third, infrastructure. If a country doesn't have a stable, reliable infrastructure, whatever economy you're trying to encourage will remain in a delicate state. This includes roads, clean drinking water, and connectivity. Historically, infrastructure has been seen as a purview of the government. But in Peru, it's been challenging to count on the government to get done the things that have needed to get done. For 50 years, the government had kept on its drawing boards a bridge for the city of Arequipa that would cross the Chili River and connect the districts of Alto Selva Alegre and Caima. 50 years. Thankfully, Peru has an interesting offer for companies. They can opt to take the money that would normally go toward taxes and use it to fund public works projects. So along with two other companies, Southern Peru Copper and Bacus, the beer company, we took the $100 million that would have normally gone toward taxes, and we decided to take on the building of the bridge ourselves. Puente Chilina, the largest bridge in Arequipa, was not only completed on budget, but it was completed on time. Now thousands of Peruvians from its second largest city use the bridge every day. We built the bridge because we knew it would be good for the people. But we also knew it would be good for our businesses. By saving these citizens time and energy, helping them get to places more easily and quickly, they are actually free to spend more time and money at our businesses too. But bridges don't make everyone's lives easier. The elderly woman there in front is Constantina. She has to cross this bridge regularly to cash her pension checks at the bank of a nearby town. If she slips, she dies. If she doesn't make it to her bank, she won't have the money she needs to live. You may be thinking, well, if she had a mobile device, she could possibly deposit it through a banking app. She does have a mobile device. At least her daughter, who's walking across the bridge with her, does. But in their village, there isn't any internet. They're not connected, so they have to take the bridge. We're working to bring internet connectivity to people like Constantina. In Peru, 35% of people live in rural or small towns with a population of up to 20,000. Most of that sector is without internet connectivity. Our first goal is to empower people living in those areas. This is a huge business opportunity for us. We estimate disposable income in these villages and towns of around $12 billion. That's why we've started the Next Frontier initiative. These are small little Wi-Fi hotspots where people can come with their mobile devices and connect to the web. We're starting with the low-hanging fruit areas in the outskirts of Lima. Then we're pushing further out, all the way into the provinces. This isn't just for the older generation like Constantina, though. It's also for her daughter and her granddaughter. It's for the more digitally savvy generations who don't just need assistance, they need opportunity. Imagine Constantina's granddaughter. She needs connectivity so she can pursue training and education, taking a step forward toward more opportunity and a brighter future. She also needs it so that her father, a farmer, can get the information he needs. If his equipment breaks, he can ask his daughter to look up how to fix it or to find new crop productivity methods. Yes, the Next Frontier initiative will be successful for us, but it's also going to help make Peru better connected, helping us move away from being a manual labor economy and toward the idea economy we need to become. As we've worked to connect more and more Peru through infrastructure, we've realized we have to think big about whom we can help. It's not just one generation, it can be many. This is how we're living out our meeting at Intercorp, by going after education, healthcare, and infrastructure in Peru. I tell you these stories to encourage you, inspire you, and empower you. I know many of you in this room have crazy, seemingly impossible dreams about the good that you can do. I think those dreams are the meaning you're chasing after. But until you fully buy into the idea of shared value, those dreams, your business's meaning, can't become a reality. This is more than just checking off the boxes of good things you can do. Recycling bins on every floor, check. Diversity hiring, check. Girl Scout cookies being sold at the lobby, check. Shared value means going beyond check boxes toward that deeper, richer meaning and the incredible accomplishments you can achieve as you benefit both your shareholders and society. It's possible. It's not an illusion. Yes, it may take time to see the fruit of this, but it's worth the effort and the wait. Remember, it took 7 years before we got to see a student like Leslie Espinosa graduate from Innova and get accepted to some of the top schools in the world. I encourage you to work and don't give up. It also takes focus. Here in the United States, we're all so buried in our phones and all the busyness of the day-to-day that we often don't even see the ideas that are right under our noses. Let me end with 2 quotes that have helped inspire me as Intercorp searches for its meaning. The first is from Michael Porter and Mark Kramer. Not all profit is equal. Profits involving a social purpose represent a higher form of capitalism. We can't lose sight of the power of business. Businesses like yours and mine have to change the world. We just have to commit. The second quote is from Viktor Frankl. And though he's talking to individuals, I think it applies to how we're to handle our organizations as well. Success cannot be pursued. It must ensue. And it only does so as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself. Remember, most people think that success is what you do for you. True success, real lasting success, is what you do for other people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. What an inspiring talk. And you can see why we were so pleased that Carlos would make the trip to be with us. We have a few minutes that we can have a conversation with Carlos. And let me start with a few questions, and then I'll open it up to you. Carlos, I couldn't help but notice that you mentioned the start of both Inca Pharma and Innova Schools as 2011. And I don't want to give Michael or myself too much credit, but that does seem to be when our article in Shared Value came out. And of course, Intercorp has many other businesses. It has been doing many things to contribute to the middle class for many years. But it seems like there was a shift. And I'm curious, how did that change your perception, and how can other business leaders begin to think slightly differently about their companies?
Well, I was lucky. I'll tell you the quick story. I was at one of these big meetings. I think it may have been Davos or something like that. And I was watching the president of Colombia speak. And as he was speaking, Professor Porter walked in, and the president of Colombia stopped his speech. And he said, "Hi, Professor Porter, I'm glad you could make it." And he sat next to me. And I said, "Wow, the Colombians are working with Michael Porter on strategy? We got a problem in Peru." So I started talking to him, and one thing led to the other. He sent me a draft of the article, and he's been working with us for the last 12 years. And in fact, it's been very helpful because, at the beginning, it just sounded like it's a kind of a goody two-shoes sort of thing. And it actually works. Our people, we have 80,000 employees that are all very, very motivated. And you ask each and every one of them, and they'll be happily tell you that our purpose is to really be the group that pushes Peru to become a developed country. And if you push even further, I just turned 60, so I'm starting to feel a little old. We want to see it in our lifetime, not someday. We want to see it while we're alive. Maybe we'll have a cane and artificial hip or whatever, but I want to see it. And if we don't see it, I'll get the cane and start hitting people over the head. And I think shared value in a country like Peru that has endemic informality, 70% of our country is informal. I think big companies like ours that started small and aspired to be big have a huge responsibility to set the example.
That's fantastic. You mentioned you have all of these schools opening in Peru, and you have one in Mexico. Why Mexico?
Well, Mexico is very similar to Peru. They have the same issues. I guess a lot of the countries in Latin America are similar in that they all are in the bottom third of the education rankings. But sometimes people ask us, why don't you just focus on Peru? Why are you kind of going out? And there's a reason for it. First of all, we're full steam ahead in Peru. But think about this. You've been told that you're last over and over and over. So 2000, 2015, 2018, we're always near the bottom. So there's really no downside, only upside. But what if, over time, if our model works and we continue to push really hard in refining it, we become successful in other countries? What would that do to the self-esteem of Peruvians? Hey, imagine a Colombian middle-class family discussing where to send their kids to school, and the mother says, "Hey, what about that school where the Peruvians are leading it?" That would be fantastic. And it's possible. If we go back 50 years, Singapore and Peru were pretty much the same. How many of you have ever heard of the term Singapore math in school? Oh, my kid, he's learning the Singapore math method. Well, why couldn't Peru do that? I think it has to do with what Singapore did, and Peru and many countries haven't, and that is human capital development. And that's what we want to do in Peru.
That's fantastic. It's hard to argue with Viktor Frankl and your definition of meaning and the fact that finding meaning is a more important motivator than financial success, other things. And yet we see a tremendous emphasis in the United States and many other places around financial success. And not just adequate financial success, but unlimited financial success. This greater inequality that there has ever been in our country. People seemingly pursuing short-term profit at the expense of anything else. I was told that the average compensation of the 25 highest paid hedge fund managers last year was $825 million each. So it's not just a little success, it's this outrageous sense of how much money one can or could make. And yet you've created this virtuous cycle where the benefit to you and to the company is also a benefit to the country, making it stronger. Why do you think we've lost that sense in America? And what can we do?
I don't know.
These are easy questions.
I don't know why it's lost in America or anywhere else, but I see it a little bit differently. I see that the better you do, the more successful you are, and the better returns you have, the more kind of resources you have to continue to do more things. Sure, our companies all are top in ROEs. They're all in a great place to work, and that's all important. But that's possible because we're all excited about the purpose and the mission that we have. I think if we just changed our tune and went from trying to lift the country up to we want to have the highest ROE of this industry or that industry, I think I'd lose a lot of my people. I certainly wouldn't want to work at a company like that. And I have worked in a company like that in my past. But I don't know. I think also our leaders, our politicians, our business leaders have to kind of set the tone. So rather than talk about all the things you're going to do, or why don't you just let your actions speak for what you do? And that's what we try to do in Peru. So, you know, it's a challenge too, because as you get bigger, you get more people looking at you, and actually some even just pointing out the mistakes that you have. And obviously we process about 35 billion transactions a year. We make mistakes all the time. But we have to learn from them and keep going forward. So I'm focused on Peru and the neighboring countries where we invest. And I think there's a great opportunity because we have a young population that's eager to do things with their lives, to be trained. And we really can't waste this opportunity. If we don't do it now, we're going to regret it for many, many years to come.
That's wonderful. Well, let's open this up to questions from the audience, if we can bring up the lights a bit. And I know we have some folks with microphones. Any questions? I see one hand here. Table 615, is that right? No? You were just moving your hand. It was you happened to be there. All right, over here.
Hi.
Yes.
I'm from Boston, and here business is very closely tied to government because it's such a small city. So I was wondering how, you can't ignore government completely. How do you go in to talk to the government of Peru to say, you know, we're going to take this on because it's the right thing to do, but like we also need you guys to also lean into this issue too. I just wonder how that dialogue works.
Yeah, we have to get along with all government because a lot of times we also need them to upgrade regulations. Because sometimes things were done many years ago, and through technology and other advances, they may not be so relevant. So we try to share what we have. Anytime somebody comes to Peru to visit us, we make sure that we go see either the president or the head of, in this case, the Minister of Education in Innova, and we try to have a very good partnership. And we've never had any real problems. What happens sometimes, not just in Peru and South America, is that on occasion you'll get kind of a crooked mayor who's asking for a bribe and otherwise you won't be able to get the permit and so on. And we have a very tough policy that's just no way. You can lose your job if you even suggest something like that. And we have cases where we have empty lots because we can't get the permit, because it won't happen the regular way, for 12 years. 12 years. And it's one corner, and the other three corners you see other thriving businesses. And ours is, I'm not suggesting that they did something wrong, but we're kind of stuck, right? Well, what we do is we turn it around, and we call this our monument to decency. So when we bring in new people, new executives, we have them tour our monument to decency. We say that's not what we do. So it's possible to do it. But you have to have a good rapport with the government. Sometimes it's center-left, sometimes it's right-left. We try to get along with everybody, try to stay apolitical and very pro-Peru.
Terrific. Other questions? Yes, sir. Gary.
I was handed the mic, so I guess I'll ask the question. This could be a little hard to put into form of a question, but it comes exactly, Mark, on what you mentioned a few moments ago. So many people who become successful are doing so for their own benefit. A Buddhist monk I know called it universal selfishness. They see their drive is to accumulate as much for themselves, regardless of the impact of others on society. And Carlos, you've given a very clear, fantastic, impressive example how you were seeking to be successful so that you could help others. And I think that if we think about shared value creation as a means that can drive our success because we can solve societal needs, make our enterprises more successful, absolutely true. But your motive is the opposite, actually. You want to be more successful so you can do more for society. So something happened along the way that enlightened you or raised your consciousness, and as Aaron spoke about yesterday, made you understand that your fulfillment would actually be much stronger by doing that than just by adding, let's say, billions into some bank account somewhere in Switzerland or otherwise. So have either of you thought about these behavioral dynamics, and what is it that clicks that switch, that activates the goodness gene, that makes leaders realize that their lives will be enhanced and how they define success will be advanced if they go down that road, and then they can use their commercial prowess and expertise to enable that impact to go much further? What activates that? Because I think behaviorally, if we can understand that, we can expand this much further.
I can only talk about my personal experience, and I can tell you that I was very, very lucky that I went through what I went through, and that I had a role model, my father and my grandfather, that were just very inspiring. And also that I've been on the other side. I used to run a hedge fund. I used to have one of those baseball player contracts. When I came to Peru in '94, I took 3 zeros for my compensation because I didn't want that life. I did it for long enough. I knew I could do it. I was good at it. And then it just didn't excite me. I also saw that when I was 10 years old, my father had to be kicked out of the country and move to the United States, start from scratch, leaving his 6 kids behind. I'm the oldest of 6. Never saw him complain, never saw him, kind of feel like a victim. He started all over. He ended up as a very senior executive at Wells Fargo. Then went back to his country in '94 to become finance minister, only to be kind of embraced by an assassination attempt. And I saw that as well. And always going back to Peru and always trying. And when difficult things happen to you, you have 2 ways of dealing with it. You can be a victim and suffer the rest of your life, or you can take that as a great opportunity. And when people ask me the people that have most inspired, besides my father and grandfather, is General Velasco, who actually kicked us out of the country because he gave us a great opportunity to start in California and get a great education. Without him, I don't think I'd see the things that I've been able to do. And the other one was the recently President Garcia, who just died, because he denied my father the job that he wanted, which was to be the head of the Inter-American Development Bank. And that forced us to become business people. So those are the 2 people. And I said it to President Garcia once, and he looked at me and he said, "What?" So I thanked him for doing that. So it really depends on how you look at life. And having had my grandfather, who came from Spain, actually whose father came from Spain to fix a church tower, and his father died along the way, and he never met him. And my father go through all that. What I have to go through is really, really easy. So in a way, it's a very natural kind of evolution. That, well, it's now my turn to do what they couldn't do because the environment wasn't right. But I think it would have been a lot harder if I hadn't seen the other side. And you know, when I remember, what was it, October 19th after the crash in 1987, I was just leaving business school, and I worked at an investment bank before my hedge fund days, and you know, I saw how everybody was given a box and made a line to talk to the boss to find out whether you were staying or you were going. I thought that was the most humiliating thing I've ever seen. I stayed, but I left the next week. I don't want to work for a company like this. So I think it has to do a lot with your personal experiences. I think every case is very different. We're, in a way, prisoners of our own experiences. So I've been lucky that I've been able to have these experiences and find my way.
You know, this connects back to one of our opening talks yesterday of Nilofer Merchant and the idea of onlyness, and the idea that what you can do in the world is based on the unique combination of experiences and attributes that you have, and we need to be in touch with that and think more about people as individuals than in a sort of generic sense. You know, I'll just add to your wonderful answer that what I found is it's addictive. Once you discover that you can be successful and do good, and that it becomes this self-reinforcing cycle, it is highly addictive. But the problem is people think it's impossible. You know, as we, as Greg mentioned at FSG, have been doing more work on issues of structural racism, racial equity, for me personally, I have discovered that so many of the things I took for granted, the social narratives in society, are just wrong. They're just false. They're there simply to hold the status quo. And it's very hard to get people to look past them. And shared value is one of these ideas that threatens the status quo. We're so used to thinking that if you want to do good, go work for an NGO or work for a foundation, work for government. If you want to make money, go to business. And they're two completely separate worlds. And yet we live in the same world. And it's only when we can persuade people that it's possible and they get a taste of it that people really change. And once they have a taste of it, they don't go back. So with that, let me thank you, Carlos, for being with us. You are always such an inspiration. Thank you for all you do for Peru and the world.